Hi, and welcome back to Carefully Speaking. I am your host, Dr. Jamila Brown, and if this is your first time here, well, I am very excited for you, and I'm very glad that you found your way to this space because I think that you're going to get something out of it. And if you've been listening to us for a while, well, welcome back. So first of all, I want to say Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all of my faithful and devoted listeners and to those who are just joining us for the first time. In our last episode of 2025, we wrapped up the season by doing a Carefully Speaking year in review, right? And we highlighted some of our major moments from 2025. And so, as we transition into a new year, I thought that it would only be fitting for us to start this year with intention. So today is January 25th, 2026. It's a Sunday, and here on the East Coast, it is cold, okay? It is snowy, it is icy, and everything feels a little slower. So I want to start there, right? Because I think a lot of people are feeling something, but not really naming it. A lot of us are feeling tired. Yes, tired of pretending that we're going to fix our lives this year. So by late January, right, all of the New Year's celebrations and all of the excitement, that's all worn off, right? The resolutions feel unrealistic. The vision boards start to feel a little heavy. And the pressure to do better, feel better, look better, act better, all of that, it's already starting to feel like too much. But underneath it all, many people are quietly going through things. And I'm talking about real life stuff, okay? Grieving, recalibrating, ending things that they don't quite have the language for yet. And so the cold and the snow and the season that we're in right now, it actually mirrors the same emotional and collective contraction. So this is not a season of expansion. It is a season when things are expected to be a little slower, right? More inward and less performative. So this episode is here to say something simple but important. If you feel behind, then you are probably right on time. So today's episode is not about reinventing the wheel. It's not about reinventing yourself. And it's not about becoming a brand new top-tier version of you. It's definitely not about forcing clarity before the timing is right. Today, I want to talk about what it looks like to let the year meet you where you are. So, let's talk about it. All right, so I want to start us off by naming the January pressure, okay? January asks a lot of us. We've come out of a long year, right? Yes, 2025 was a very long year. Sometimes it's a painful one, sometimes it's a complicated one, and almost immediately we're told to decide who we're going to be next. What are your goals, right? We ask ourselves and we ask each other. What are you changing this year, right? What are you leaving behind from last year? And what are you going to fix? On the surface, that sounds very empowering and very motivational. But underneath it all, there is a lot of pressure. Pressure to do what? Well, pressure to decide something too quickly or to make a less informed major life decision. Pressure to overcompensate. Pressure to perform healing rather than embodying it. Pressure to prove to ourselves that this year is going to mean something different by turning it into productivity. The truth is, January is a really strange time of the year to be demanding such major transformations. Why? Think about it. We're tired. We're cold. We are recovering financially, emotionally, and maybe even interpersonally and spiritually from the holiday season. And we're anticipating, and we're still carrying things that we didn't even get to name yet. I'm talking about the grief, the disappointment, the losses, the lessons learned from the past year that we haven't even metabolized or digested yet. So if you're feeling behind, if you're feeling unmotivated, if you're feeling stuck or just unsure about what to do different this year, I want you to hear this clearly. That doesn't mean you're failing. Probably it means that you're being honest with yourself, and that is okay. So now I want to honor the fact that not everything needs fixing. Because one of the biggest lies and misconceptions that we tell ourselves, and they're even sold to us at the beginning of the year, right? And that's that everything needs to be fixed. And what do I mean by everything? Well, I mean our productivity. I mean our habits. I mean our bodies, our relationships, our emotions, and our boundaries. And I want to gently push back, right? And I want to challenge that a little bit, because not everything needs fixing all at once. Yes, it's true. Some things need more understanding and more attention, right? Some things need more time and more grounding. And some things need more care. Some things just need to be released. Not because we didn't try hard enough, but because they were never within our locus of control. Now, I'm telling you, there is a difference between growth and self-pressure. There is a difference between intention and urgency. And when we start to confuse the two, that's when we end up making decisions that we can't live up to. Not because we're undisciplined, but because those decisions were never actually rooted in reality, right? Sometimes we get blinded by the fantasy of acquiring or accomplishing something brand new without actually taking time to slow down and think it through on a practical level. And don't get me wrong, it is great to have goals and to reinvent ourselves. But when that reinvention happens without intention, when it happens just to check off another box, that's when we start to see that those things are falling quietly out of alignment. And that is where intention matters. So intention, it asks us to be honest about what we actually have the capacity for. While on the other hand, control, that tries to force the outcomes before we're actually ready. So remember, intention is about alignment and pacing. Control is fear and urgency. And when we confuse those two, that's when the water starts to get murky and muddy, and we end up exhausting ourselves instead of moving forward. So I want to talk a little bit more about intention versus control, because I've been thinking a lot about this idea. Intention says, this is what really matters to me. This is what I need to be healthy and to live a sustainable life. This is what I am willing to cultivate and tend to. This is what I want to move towards slowly, and honestly. But on the contrary, control says, if I decide hard enough, if I make a cold and hard decision about this, then everything will go as planned and nothing unexpected will ever happen. If I strategize and plan long enough, then I won't ever feel discomfort. If I change things fast enough, then I won't have to sit with my uncertainty. In January, that tends to reward control a lot more, but not intention. And the reality is that life just doesn't work like that, right? Life is not so linear. It doesn't move in straight lines. Sometimes life moves in loops. It circles back to us. It expands and it contracts. It shifts, it responds, it unfolds. And sometimes the most grounding thing that we can do is stop trying to outrun life, right? Stop trying to outpace it. Stop trying to speed things up and let life meet us where we're at. All right, so now I want to talk about something that's called the sacred pause, right? And I want to name this because it doesn't get talked about enough, especially in wellness spaces. Now, there is such a thing as a sacred pause. And you may be wondering, what does that mean, right? So a pause is about listening. It's about paying attention to what is coming up without immediately trying to solve it. It's about noticing patterns instead of reacting to them. And it's about allowing clarity to arrive instead of chasing it. A sacred pause is not passive. It's intentional. It's an active decision to slow down long enough to actually hear yourself think, to feel, and to respond appropriately. Now, there are some seasons that are really good for action, right? And some seasons are good for observation. And January, especially late January, is definitely a season of observation. This is the time when you start to look around and you notice what you're tired of. You notice what keeps resurfacing for you, emotionally, spiritually. You notice what no longer fits you, physically and mentally. Now, I'll tell you, I literally just did this myself, okay? Last week, I was going through my closet and I was just clearing out some things that no longer suited me, right? Some pieces didn't fit my current style or my taste, and others I just hadn't worn in over 2 years. And they were just taking up some unnecessary space and creating just a lot of mental clutter for me. And that's an example, a small scale example of how often this season may show up for some of us. Not always in a dramatic moment, but in a quiet realization. And this is the season when we start to examine what feels too heavy for us to carry when we think about sustaining it for another year. Not just the things that are uncomfortable, but really what is sustainable. Why? Because that information is valuable. It is data. It is wisdom. It is maturity and spiritual growth. But it doesn't need to be rushed into right away, and it also doesn't deserve to be ignored. So the sacred pause, it asks us to hold what we're noticing with care, long enough to understand it before deciding what comes next. And pressure starts to show up when we don't pause. And pressure is usually disguising itself as motivation, telling us to keep moving forward before we're ready. So I want to switch gears and talk about pressure disguised as motivation, because sometimes what we call motivation, that's actually fear. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean the fear of falling behind, or the fear of not getting ahead in life, or the fear of missing out on something, or the fear that time is moving way too fast, the fear of being judged, the fear of repeating patterns, the fear of wasting time and not being productive enough. So instead of making grounded choices, we make overpromises to ourselves and sometimes even to other people. And those promises, they're fueled by anxiety, not by truth. Promises that sound good in the moment, but don't actually reflect our capacity. And then, when we can't maintain those promises, we turn inward like the hermit and we internalize it as failure. We tell ourselves, we didn't try hard enough, right? We lack discipline. Something's wrong with us. But here's the thing. Any decision that is made under pressure, it rarely lasts. Why? Because that decision doesn't honor capacity. It doesn't account for the context, and it doesn't leave room for change or adjustment or growth. And you don't need to punish yourself for that. You don't need to shame yourself for responding to pressure the way that some people do. You just need to listen, right? Listen to it. Because pressure is information, not a mandate. And that's exactly why this season is not about forcing movement. Instead of letting pressure decide for us, this is an invitation to let the year meet you where you are. All right, so now I want to talk about what it means to let the year meet you where you are, because that is the title of our episode today. So what does it mean? It means allowing yourself to begin this year without a performance, without the need to prove that you're doing enough, healing fast enough, or moving forward in the right way. It means acknowledging what you genuinely have the energy for and what you don't. Not what you wish you had the energy for, not what you think you should be able to handle, but what is actually available to you right now. It means choosing honesty over ambition, choosing alignment over urgency, and giving yourself the permission to move at a pace that does not cost you or your well-being. It means being able to say, without shame, this is what I can carry right now. This is what I need to stop forcing. This is what I am willing to take on one step at a time. And it also means accepting the fact that some things are just going to unfold as you go. Not because you failed to plan enough, but sometimes life just requires responsiveness. Clarity, that often comes through movement and not before it. And because flexibility is a form of wisdom, it's not a lack of commitment. So letting the year meet you where you are, that is a relationship, right? Why? Because it's asking you to listen. It's asking you to adjust, and it's asking you to trust, not to apply pressure or to seek perfection. Those are all things that are good qualities of a healthy relationship. And so this year, instead of resolutions, I want to offer you a few reflections, right? Not tasks, not goals, just invitations. And you can sit with these. You can talk about them amongst your colleagues or your friends or your family. You can journal about them or you can just hold them. But I have 4 things that I want you to think about as you start to reorganize your year. Number 1, what's one thing you don't need to fix right now? So when I think about this, I think about the person who every Sunday night is convincing themselves that if they just organize their calendar a little bit better, then this week is going to feel better, right? So they color code their schedules, they set new alarms, they tell themselves this is finally going to be the week where I get it all together. But the truth is, their life is not actually chaotic. They're just tired. They've been pushing through work, pushing through family obligations, pushing through all of the emotional weight without having a real break. And what doesn't need fixing is their time management. What needs attention is the fact that they have not actually rested. Number 2, what's one thing that you are ready to stop explaining or justifying? Now, when I think of this person, I think of the person who says no and then immediately sends a follow-up text explaining why. I'm exhausted. I've been running around all week. The kids have been a lot. I still have a laundry to do, yada, yada, yada. They're not explaining the reason. They're explaining because they feel guilty for choosing themselves. Let go of the justification, which might sound like this. I can't make it tonight. That's simple, without adding anything else, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Number 3, what's one area of your life that would benefit from having more patience instead of pressure? Now, this question comes up when I think of someone who is putting a lot of pressure on themselves to enhance a certain part of their life that's already doing the best that it can. Maybe it's healing after a hard year, or waiting for clarity around work, or letting a relationship dynamic find its footing. And instead of allowing time to do its work, they keep checking for signs of progress, keep checking in and wondering why things aren't moving fast enough. But more patience might look like staying present in the moment, watching what is unfolding, rather than turning every quiet second into some proof that things are going wrong. And number 4, and maybe the most important one of all, what if this year isn't about becoming someone new? What if it's about becoming more honest about who you already are? Now, this one usually lands when someone realizes that they have been trying to motivate themselves into a version of life that they don't actually enjoy anymore. They keep saying yes to things that drain them. They keep pushing themselves to show up the way that they used to. They keep holding on to roles and routines and responsibilities that no longer fit. Why? Because letting go feels too risky. Become more honest. And that might sound like, this season of my life, it just looks different. Or, I don't want to keep forcing this. And that genuine honesty, it does not require a dramatic reinvention. It just asks for truer choices about how you spend your time, how you focus your energy, and how you draw your attention. So those are my invitations to you as you reflect and continue evolving this year. And when you put all of that together, it becomes very clear that letting the year meet you where you are isn't about lowering your standards or about giving up on growth. It's about telling the truth. The truth about your energy, your limits, and what this season of your life actually looks like. It's choosing to stop fixing what isn't broken. It's about releasing the need to explain yourself, giving time what it needs instead of rushing it, and allowing honesty to guide you more than pressure. And maybe that's enough for now. Maybe that's the work. Okay, y'all, so we are about to wrap this thing up and set the tone for the year. right? Now, I've given you a lot of information today, but I have to practice what I preach, right? I gave you a lot of things to reflect on, and I want to model this with transparency. So, as I step into this new year of Carefully Speaking, I'm moving into it more intentionally. What does that mean? Well, it means monthly episodes, right? It means more visual presence. And it means more space for integration of the meaningful work that we're all doing together. And I want to slow things down, not because I have less to say, but because I want to say what's actually settled. And if you're listening to this or watching this and feeling like you don't have answers yet, I want you to know something. You're not behind. You're exactly where you need to be. Why? Because you're listening and you're watching and you're noticing and you're allowing. And sometimes that's the most important work that there is. So instead of rushing and pushing ourselves to meet the year with new expectations and new deadlines, maybe we can let the year meet us right here where we are, with curiosity, with openness, with genuineness, with honesty and truth, and with care. So I thank you all for being here, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye now.